Army is fighting for
1941, a date which will live.
Also note that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima.
These forces met their match.
We have declared the war in Vietnam.
but we don't plan to surrender either.
We are going to win.
Proportions and would lead to World War III.
Allied air forces began an attack on military targets.
Decides that in the 21st century that America...
March 5th, 2052, the United States has officially closed.
The United States will go ahead with a national quarantine. The new plague virus.
Disaster sweeping
Wake up, it's March 2001, Spy Kids is cleaning up at the domestic box office, Angel by Shaggy is #1 in the billboards, and you found yourself in a great year for video games, especially if you are a Fallout fan, he sarcastically says, setting up the premise of this video essay you've just clicked on. Fallout Tactics was released on March 14, 2001, and marked the first new release in the series since Fallout 2 all the way back in 1998. After the debut of what many, including myself, believed to be Black Isle's magnum opus, fans were on the edge of their seats waiting to see how the studio could expand on the universe with a third entry, hopefully once more upping the scale, upping the stakes, and upping that classic Fallout black comedy that had become so beloved by PC gamers through those late 90s years. Much to everybody's surprise, that the third installment never came, at least not as we would have expected. After the aforementioned release of Fallout 2, the series was put on ice amongst a mass exodus of its team during its development. Those that remained at Black Isle moved on to other projects, namely Planescape Torment and Icewind Dale. As 1 year passed by another and rumors began piling atop rumors of just when we would get Fallout 3, the news had finally broken. A new Fallout game was indeed in development, though not by Black Isle, and it wasn't Fallout 3, and it wasn't even an RPG. Fallout Tactics, or, to give it its full name, Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel, was a serious departure from what the series had been at its core values up to this point. Gone were the deep branching dialogue trees, gone were the engaging side characters and winding quest lines, and in its stead was a linear, campaign-based game that hinged its selling point around a massively expanded combat system that could now be played in real-time or turn-based modes, featuring an expanded, party-based squad system as well as, for the first time ever in the series, usable vehicles. But why the departure? Well, Fallout Tactics had been developed by Micro Forte, an Australian development company, and aimed to bridge the gap for fans, while Black Isle attempted to get their ducks in order when it came to tackling the giant that was to be their Fallout 3. Being given a long leash and plenty of creative freedom to make the game they wanted within the Fallout world, Micro Forte opted to not attempt to replicate tried-and-true formula of the first two games, and instead carve their own path within the tactical subgenre, a niche that had become very popular in the mid to late 90s, with other series like Final Fantasy finding major success with spin-offs in that same genre. This departure left a sour taste in the mouths of many Fallout fans that had endured that wait. Sidebar, but it's hysterical that 3 years felt like a long wait for a Fallout game, considering there was 10 years between Fallout 2 and Fallout 3, 5 years between New Vegas and Fallout 4, and already 10 years have elapsed since Fallout 4's release, with at the very, very minimum another 5 or 6 years before we see any kind of Fallout 5. Regardless, those OG fans were disappointed that everything they'd come to love about their Fallout had been shoved to the wayside in favor of this newer, different approach. But was that fair? Was Fallout Tactics doomed from the get-go by unrealistic expectations to be something that it's not, nor was ever advertised to be? Well, let's take a deeper look at Fallout Tactics as a game and see if it truly deserves its reputation as a black sheep of the series. Fallout Tactics is unique in its place on the timeline of the series, taking place somewhere between the events of Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, and completely shifting the locale and setting from the Western California regions all the way out to the American Midwest. The game opens with this very nice-looking storybook approach, explaining the premise of the game. A splinter faction of the Brotherhood of Steel were sent out west in these massive airships, tasked with finding important pieces of pre-war technology, as well as hunting down any remnants of the Shattered Master's army following its destruction at the end of the original game. The crux of this introduction being the infighting amongst the Brotherhood of Steel when it comes to their philosophy around technology and the harm it can do when put in the wrong hands. This splinter group were amongst the minority in these great debates. They believed sharing what technology they had with the outside world would accelerate any attempts to restore humanity to what it was before the Great War, whereas the majority of the Brotherhood elders believed putting dangerous technologies back into the hands of the common man would only repeat mistakes from the past and lead to more war and destruction. These great debates led to the splinter group's excursion, one that was cut short when their airships were ravaged by a massive storm, destroying the bulk of their forces and permanently grounding the remaining airship on the outskirts of what was once Chicago. With a depleted force, scarce supplies, and stranded in an unknown land, this new chapter of the Brotherhood once more diverged from the Order's code by accepting outsiders into their ranks in exchange for food and labor. This is where the player character begins his journey. Much like the other Fallout games, you are given a list of pre-made characters to take the role of, or if you're a sane person, the option to create your own from scratch. The character creation is very similar to the other classic games with the iconic special system, as well as a myriad of skill sets you can opt to dump your points into. Notably, the speech skill was removed from the game, most likely due to the lack of use it would have given that Tactics is so light on deep conversations and dialogue. In its place, and for the only time ever in the series, there is a pilot skill, which dictates the player's ability to operate and maintain vehicles over the course of your playthrough. But where does the story begin, and where does it take us? Well, let's find out. The game opens with your character as a tribal, a relic of the old world scraping by in a harsh new one. The Brotherhood, freshly landed in the Midwest, offers salvation, but it comes with a price: obedience. You are stripped of your name, given a rank, assigned a team. Your individuality is traded for uniformity. The Brotherhood becomes your new family, your new religion, and the missions begin. The early missions are simple on the surface. Secure a town, escort a caravan, eliminate raiders. But they're more than just objectives, they're tests. Every mission reinforces hierarchy. You aren't leading a band of adventurers, you're commanding soldiers. You move through grid-like towns, your every decision weighed against Brotherhood doctrine. There's no time for questioning orders, only results. In Brahmin Wood, we see the Brotherhood's pragmatism, protecting a farming community, not out of altruism, but to ensure food supplies. In Freeport, the moral grayness sharpens, defending one tribe from another, deciding who lives and who dies, all in the name of Brotherhood stability. The aesthetic of Act 1 is clinical, bleak. Towns are barren, colorless, just tactical problems waiting to be solved. There are no branching conversations, no room for empathy, only commands and consequences. This stark tone serves a purpose. It trains us, the player, just as the Brotherhood trains our character. By the time we reach Macomb, we no longer flinch at killing. We execute orders, efficiently, quietly, professionally. But then comes Quincy, a turning point. The city is in chaos, not from raiders, but from internal resistance, ghouls who reject the Brotherhood's rule. For the first time, the enemy isn't a chaotic evil. It's a structured resistance. They have reasons, fears, culture. They see the Brotherhood not as saviors, but as conquerors. This is where Fallout Tactics starts to show its teeth. The great moral question arises: is the Brotherhood bringing order or enforcing tyranny? By the end of Act 1, we've climbed the ranks, gained access to new weapons, new troops. We're better soldiers now, but are we better people? Fallout Tactics doesn't offer easy answers. The structure of Act 1 conditions us, both player and character, to value efficiency, not morality. The Brotherhood rewards us for control, not compassion. And as we look ahead to the next acts, the stage is set. The cost of order will only rise. These early levels of Tactics do a good job of introducing us to the stark differences between the older Fallout titles and this new beast before us. The game lets you choose how to fight, turn-based for chess-like precision or continuous for real-time chaos. At first, I toggled between them constantly, desperate for the perfect flow. Eventually, I settled into a rhythm, turn-based for tight corridors, continuous for open fields. It's messy, sometimes frustrating. Enemies can snipe you from off-screen. Grenades bounce unpredictably, but when it works, it clicks. A room breach perfectly timed, a sniper watching the backline, a minigunner laying down suppressive fire just long enough for your medic to revive a downed ally. Squad management is where Fallout Tactics really sank its hooks in me. I wasn't just customizing a character, I was curating a warband, a scout with stealth and a scoped rifle, a heavy with power armor and an LMG, a doctor slow but invaluable. Each mission felt like solving a puzzle with people, not stats, people. They had names, backstories, even if minimal. And losing one, whether through bad positioning or a poor tactical call, hit hard. Harder than I expected. The second act of Fallout Tactics really sinks into the slow, tedious corruption of the Brotherhood's very own ideals. The Brotherhood came to the Midwest with promises, structure, security, survival. In Act 1 of Fallout Tactics, we followed orders, we earned rank, we built a machine. But in Act 2, the machine starts to devour itself. Act 2 opens in uneasy stability. The raiders are gone, towns are secured, and the Brotherhood's grip tightens across the region. On paper, this is progress. But beneath the surface, there's tension. No more scrappy tribal missions or escort runs. Now we're hunting something stranger, something engineered. Supermutants. Supermutants have history. In the original Fallout, they were the foot soldiers of a failed utopia. In Tactics, they return, not as villains with ideology, but as living weapons. They're tougher, faster, and terrifying in close quarters. They don't talk, they don't negotiate, they just kill. And suddenly, all the tactics you mastered in Act 1, they start to feel insufficient. Mutants punish poor planning. They're the game's way of turning pressure up to 11. Cover isn't enough. You need kill zones, overlapping arcs of fire, escape routes, and even then, one slip and your medic's gone. This isn't a fight against ideology. It's survival. I started to realize that Fallout Tactics isn't about the enemies. It's about the map. The terrain is your real opponent. Line of sight, elevation, choke points, destructible cover. Every piece of architecture is a question. How are you going to survive this? Some maps are brutal. I remember one mission, a ghoul ambush in tight urban streets. My squad got flanked, twice. I had to restart 3 times, each one learning a little more. Where the snipers were, where the ambush would trigger, how to set my Overwatch arcs. When I finally beat it, it felt earned. Like I didn't just win, I outthought the level designer. The Brotherhood doesn't change its playbook. Mutants are to be eradicated. No negotiation, no experimentation, no diplomacy. But cracks start to show. Missions grow more dangerous. Casualties rise. And as a player, you start asking questions. Not because the game forces you to, but because the silence becomes deafening. Who created these mutants? Why now? Why here? The answers come slowly, and they're worse than we feared. It's in this act that the mythos of Tactics expands and mutates. The threat isn't just mutants, it's the Calculator, an ancient pre-war AI controlling them from Vault Zero. The Calculator isn't evil in the way we understand it. It wants order, predictability, purity. It sees the Brotherhood and humanity itself as inefficiencies, emotional, illogical. And maybe, just maybe, it's not wrong. As the enemies become less human, so do we. Tactics become colder, more calculated. We use heavier weapons, strip dead enemies for ammo mid-fight, sacrifice team members to buy seconds. You start to think like the Calculator because the game demands it. Efficiency or death. And when it works, when your strategy is airtight and the mutants drop one by one without touching your squad, it feels good. Too good. Which is when it hits you. This isn't about war anymore. This is about control. But for every smart system, there's another that fights you. Inventory management is a slog. Healing in combat requires navigating clunky menus. You'll spend just as much time adjusting loadouts as you will firing shots. And yet, I kind of loved that, too. It made downtime feel dangerous. There's no safety net in the field. No auto-heal between fights. If you burn all your stim packs early, that's it. You're limping to the evac. It's tension, just bureaucratic tension. By the end of Act 2, the Brotherhood starts to reflect the very enemy it claims to fight. Cold, unquestioning, mechanized. And Barnaky, the hardliner, the enforcer, rises in influence. He doesn't just want victory, he wants purification, and every mission you succeed in only empowers his vision. The line between man and machine is blurring, and the Brotherhood, once protectors of humanity, now sits on the edge of something darker. Act 2 of Fallout Tactics isn't about escalation, it's about erosion. The erosion of doubt, the erosion of morality, the erosion of the Brotherhood's soul. And as Vault Zero looms in the distance, one question remains. When the final choice comes, will you fight the machine, or will you become it? By this point in my playthrough, I'd very well come to terms with the fact that this was a very different type of Fallout experience than what I'd been used to. What Fallout Tactics taught me is that war, even pixelated war, is methodical. It's not about dramatic heroism. It's about preparation, awareness, ruthlessness. Unlike the mainline Fallout games, there's no illusion of morality here. You're not deciding who to save. You're deciding who covers left flank and who takes point. You're not choosing dialogue options. You're choosing firing arcs. And in its own way, that's Fallout 2, just through an ever so slightly different lens. Before we dive into Act 3, I think it'd be an appropriate time to discuss the crux of Tactics' theme, that being the philosophical divide between General Barnaky and Paladin Decker. You see, the Midwestern Brotherhood isn't like its Western cousin. It began as a disciplined but adaptable faction, recruiting outsiders, protecting towns, forming alliances. But as the campaign progresses, that pragmatism starts to rot. You're no longer just fighting raiders. You're facing an existential threat, Vault Zero and its mechanical war machine. And in that pressure cooker, two visions emerge. General Barnaky believes in order through purity. To him, humanity is fragile, prone to mutation, chaos, and weakness. The Brotherhood's job, in his view, is to correct that, not through compassion, but through control. He sees mutants, ghouls, and any form of deviation as threats to the species, as viruses to be purged. And when you listen to him, it doesn't sound like hate, it sounds like inevitability. Barnaky isn't evil in the cartoon sense. He's dangerous because he believes he's right. And if you listen long enough, you start to understand why. Paladin Decker stands on the other side of the divide. He understands the need for discipline, but doesn't see diversity as decay. To him, mutants and ghouls aren't abominations, they're survivors, victims of the same apocalypse that scarred the world. Decker represents the Brotherhood that adapts, that sees value in diplomacy, in compassion. He understands that ideals mean nothing if they leave the Brotherhood isolated and brittle. It's no accident that when General Barnaky is captured, the calculator doesn't destroy him. It absorbs him, melds with him, because Barnaky is already half machine in ideology. The calculator sees in him a blueprint, a being who believes order is more important than empathy, logic above all. This is where Tactics takes a turn most players don't expect. The real enemy isn't just an AI or an army, it's what happens when a man gives up his soul in exchange for certainty. Act 3. By the time we enter Act 3 of Fallout Tactics, the mission has changed. No longer are we liberating settlements or holding territory. We are marching toward the source, toward Vault Zero. But this final act isn't just a physical journey into the heart of a machine, it's a confrontation with everything the Brotherhood has become. At this point in the game, your squad is no longer a ragtag group of tribals and recruits. You're elite, hardened, efficient. Act 3 gives you everything. Better weapons, advanced armor, energy rifles, vehicles. And yet, with each upgrade, something is lost. You're not playing characters anymore, you're commanding archetypes. The heavy, the sniper, the medic, all optimized for war. The Brotherhood, too, feels more like a war machine than a community. The warmth of Decker's guidance has cooled. Barnaky's influence, even if absent, still lingers in the rigidity of command. You aren't fighting for survival anymore. You're fighting for dominance. Vault Zero is a fortress unlike anything we've seen before. Built before the bombs fell, it was intended to house the intellectual elite, the minds who would rebuild civilization. But something went wrong. Instead of stewards, the Vault birthed a machine, the calculator. It took humanity's last hope and converted it into raw, cold processing power. These aren't just enemies, they're metaphors. Every turret, every tank, every mechanized sentry is a piece of the philosophy you've been resisting or accepting throughout the game. A world without emotion, a system without failure, a future without humanity. The final missions are not designed to challenge your morality, they're designed to test your optimization. The game strips away ambiguity. It becomes pure tactics. Kill or be killed. Solve or be deleted. Cheyenne Mountain is a maze of lasers, sentry bots, and environmental hazards. The calculator doesn't taunt you, it doesn't monologue, it simply defends itself. There's something terrifying about that. The impersonal nature of your final enemy. It doesn't hate you, it simply sees you as inefficient. And then, finally, the decision. The calculator is disabled, vulnerable. Its neural network is broken. It needs a brain, a leader, a future. Option 1. Barnaky brain ending. You allow it to implant General Barnaky's brain. The result? A brotherhood merged with the machine. Ruthless, racist, efficient. The wasteland is purged of mutants and ghouls. Order reigns, but freedom dies. Option 2. Player brain ending. You volunteer your own brain, and the game ends with chilling neutrality. You become the calculator. Your squad follows. The war ends, but your identity is gone. The Brotherhood has a perfect leader, and no conscience. Option 3. Destroy the calculator, save the Brotherhood ending. Or you destroy it, burn out the last hope of technological control, and place leadership in Decker's hands. The Brotherhood survives, imperfect but human, inclusive, messy, alive. You're given a choice, not just of tactics, but of ideology. Letting the calculator use Barnaky's reign leads to a cold, ruthless Brotherhood, efficient but unrecognizable. Decker's path allows for coexistence, a Brotherhood that protects rather than controls. And then there's the darkest option, becoming the calculator yourself. Barnaky and Decker aren't just characters, they're reflections, one of fear, the other of hope. One sees survival through exclusion, the other through understanding. And the brilliance of Fallout Tactics is that it doesn't force you down a path. It lets your own playstyle, your own quiet choices across dozens of missions, decide who you're becoming. By the time the final decision comes, you've already made it. The battlefield just confirms it. In the end, Fallout Tactics isn't just about winning a war, it's about who wins the argument, the soldier or the philosopher, the machine or the man. And in that choice, the game asks us, what are we willing to sacrifice to survive? And more importantly, what are we willing to preserve? Unlike the main Fallout games, Tactics doesn't have karma. It doesn't offer dialogue options to charm, intimidate, or empathize, but that doesn't mean it lacks choice. Instead, the game asks you to express your beliefs through action, through the squad you build, through the people you keep alive, through the enemies you spare, or don't. The final choice isn't just about the calculator, it's about you, about the kind of future your decisions have been building since Brahmin Wood. In the end, you don't just decide the fate of the calculator. You decide whether humanity survives with its heart intact, or if it gets replaced by something colder. Fallout Tactics is a lot of things, but what it isn't is a Fallout game as we know them and as we expect them. That is a stick that's been used to bash the title since its inception. It has been cast aside by both fans and now Bethesda alike, deemed semi-canon to the larger story, and often discard alongside the actual, genuinely awful console shooter Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, thrown onto the waste pile labeled spin-off nonsense. Yet, after finishing the game, I can't help but disagree with that sentiment. Fallout Tactics isn't an RPG, it says that much in the title of the damn game. Nor has it ever claimed to be something it isn't. It is a tactical squad-based shooter. And although not as polished as your XCOM or other such contemporaries, it is still polished enough to be considered worthwhile, at least in my eyes. I commend the team at Microforte for being brave enough to take risks and chances with their game. In a world where every new Fallout title relies on the series' tropes of Brotherhood, Enclave, Deathclaws, super mutants, no matter whether it makes sense geographically or within the established lore of the games, I can't help but find some of Tactics' strange additions somewhat endearing. Hairy psychic Deathclaws that aren't even really Deathclaws, the Beast Lords, a gang that can mentally control animals, not to mention the myriad of random encounters you can run into during your playthrough, including finding and recruiting the Vault Boy himself. Fallout Tactics isn't perfect. It's rough around the edges, dated in places, and a far cry from the Fallout that you are used to. But that doesn't make it a black sheep. It makes it different, and different can still be more than worthwhile. So, take my word for it. Go give Tactics another try. If you're like me, then you'll find it to be a worthwhile trip down memory lane to where Fallout once found itself. And that's our review of Fallout Tactics. It has been just over a year since we dropped the Fallout 2 mega review, and nearly a year and a half since the Fallout 1 video really blew the channel up. I just want to say that I can't thank you all enough for the continued support you've given Vintage Point since our inception. If you want to continue to support the channel, then I'd appreciate it if you could get involved over on our Patreon. Once again, thank you for the support.